So I think this is quite an interesting one, something that I was reading about as I was having my breakfast cereals this morning, scrolling down the BBC News app on my phone. And this is something, it's another one of these kind of sexually improper behaviour things. Of course, we've had Donald Trump, that's probably the biggest of the lot. This one took place on French TV, and I find this one very, very interesting. I've been thinking about this most of the day, and it involves a guy, a 54-year-old journalist called Jean-Michel Maire, and a 21-year-old model, she's called Soraya. And I think they've been doing some kind of reenactment of Kim Kardashian's robbery in Paris or something like that. And at the end of it, he'd gone to give her a kiss. She turned away. And so he planted a kiss on the top of her, quite considerable, it has to be said, cleavage there. And an absolute shitstorm, as he's wont to kick off these days. That's kind of the order of things, isn't it? A shitstorm has to kick off. And really, it's got to the stage where the sort of media around the globe is reporting on this now. More than 250, this is what the BBC says, more than 250 outraged viewers, including Women's Rights Minister Laurence Rossignol, complained to the media regulator, and others called for Mr. Maire to be prosecuted. To give you an example of the strength of feeling, this was the headline that Metro, the online magazine, ran with: "Woman sexually assaulted live on TV." Makes it sound like it's some kind of pre-planned event. Join us later for the live sexual assault of a woman. But they went with "Woman sexually assaulted live on TV as presenter kisses her breast without permission." Well, look, I'm going to tell you what I think about all of this and some of the issues that stem from it. But probably the first thing that I should do is just let you see the footage so you can see exactly what it is that happened.
Je connais Robert, il a une famille, il est venu gentiment ici pour ouvrir une porte. Il ne va pas se retrouver à Galloche-Jean-Michel.
On défoncer une porte.
Oui, c'est vrai, voilà. Merci.
Respecte un peu.
Calmez-vous, il y a des mots à ne pas prononcer à cette heure-ci.
Bon, on y va maintenant.
Allez, alors un petit smack, comment?
Un petit smack, juste un smack.
Un smack.
Oh.
So you've seen the footage, we all know what we're talking about now. And let me be right clear from the outset, I'm not condoning what this guy has done. I think probably the right words to use for this is that he's overstepped the mark. I mean, it's the kind of behaviour that we've all seen, maybe on a drunken night out with couples or whatever, where everybody's had a few good drinks, and maybe, something like this happens, and it's everybody has a damn good laugh about it. But this is on live TV, this is sober individuals that aren't friends, they're just people on the same programme. He's overstepped the boundaries there of what we would accept, and he owes her an apology. He's overstepped the mark, he owes her an apology. But as far as I'm concerned, we need to get things in some kind of proportion here. That's probably about where it ought to end. Really. Maybe if he'd given an apology straight away on social media or something, maybe that would have drawn a line under it. I tend to think nowadays it wouldn't, because once that bandwagon started rumbling, once it's gathered momentum, until somebody's head's on a stake, it just keeps on going. Nowadays, doesn't it? That seems to be the way that things work. But, we need to get some kind of proportion. It's not like he's murdered all the family and he's left them in bed with blood pissing out of their abdomens all over the bed sheets. He's not bent over and done a Mike Tyson and torn the bottom of her earlobe off with his teeth, right? So I think we need to get things in some kind of proportion. But the interesting thing when I read this, I was thinking back to the Madonna thing that happened on stage. So I was kind of interested to see what this Soraya had to say about it. Because if you remember what happened with Madonna on stage, it was in Brisbane and she had this female fan on stage with her. And then quite unprompted and without any kind of consent or anything like that, she grabbed hold of the female fan's top and yanked it down so everybody in the crowd could see this female fan's tits. Okay, in fact, this is maybe something else I should show you, so again, you know what we're talking about.
She's the kind of girl you just want to slap on the and pull. Oh, I didn't stop. Sorry, sexual harassment. You can do the same to me. Good luck.
So the reason I was thinking back to that Madonna thing, I should explain that really, was that was gathering momentum in the media at the time. And it was nipped in the bud. And what kind of nipped it in the bud was that the female fan spoke out and a mother spoke out. And in fact, the female fan said something along the lines of, "It's my breast, it's my nipple. If I want to make an issue out of Madonna exposing it, I'll make an issue out of it. But actually, I'm a big fan of Madonna. I idolise her. And it's just an amazing thing that Madonna's exposed my breast live on stage like that. that, and I'm proud of my breast. And everybody took on board this individual fan's agency and said, well, if that's what she thinks, then fine. Or at least most people did. And it all kind of died a death to such an extent that not only did Madonna not apologise to the individual or apologise to society for overstepping the mark, but she made a joke about it on a couple of occasions. So that's how much it was kind of all done and dusted and no issue there. Now, one thing I know, because I'm pretty long in the tooth with doing this, is that if I just leave that at that and then talk about the relevant part, then I will get an absolute deluge of comments from people saying, yes, but if Madonna was a man, you know, it wouldn't have ended like that. And yeah, it's hard to argue with that. I don't think there's many anti-feminists, non-feminists or feminists alike who would argue with that point. I think most people would accept, yeah. I mean, I did a video on the word creepy the other day. I think the word creepy would probably be involved, wouldn't it? I mean, after all, this female fan whose top was pulled down live on stage by Madonna was only 17 years old, and Madonna is in her late 50s. She's a multi-millionaire. She's one of the most famous people in the world. If this was a man in his late 50s, oh, what a creep he would be if he'd done that. And what an abuse of his power, of the hold that he has over his fans, that he's done that. And yes, this fan may have said it's okay, but this fan is in the thrall of this superstar. And so it doesn't really matter that it was okay for the fan, that because this superstar is abusing their position of authority. Let's not give any consideration to what the fan says. I'm pretty sure that would be the way that it would pan out. Tell me if you disagree. I don't think many people will disagree with that. But let's draw a line under that, right? We can talk about that another day, right? As unpalatable as that is. Because that isn't the relevant part. The relevant part is that in the Madonna case, the fan spoke out and said, yeah, I'm all starry-eyed about Madonna, and it was just the greatest thing in the world for her to expose my tit. But this model Soraya didn't, right? She took exception to it, and that is why I say that this guy owed her an apology there for doing that. But I'm interested in what she said. This is what she said. This was her quote. I'm a human being, not just an object. And that kind of surprised me. That it brought a bit of a smile to my face. Of all the things she could have picked on, that her space had been invaded, you know, that he made her feel violated, she could quite legitimately, I suppose, have said that he'd sexually assaulted, that I've been sexually assaulted, but no, she didn't. The thing that she really found a problem, that she really took problem with, was that she'd been objectified. That was the thing. So here you have somebody, riddle me this one, just riddle me this one, because this is the way society seems to be going. And bear in mind, I do not want to limit women in what they wear. And if you want to go and wear stuff like this, I really don't want to stop you, because I think she looks absolutely fantastic in this dress, right? I don't want to kind of limit that. So crack on with it. But riddle me this. This is a woman who clearly, she has had a significant boob job, breast augmentation, right, to make her breasts almost visually unmissable, right? You know, you cannot help but look at her tits, can you? And then she's gone no way towards hiding them away while she's on there. In fact, if you have a look at that dress, I mean, it's hard to envisage a dress she could have worn that would have shown more tit than the dress she did wear that would still be allowed. Given that you're not allowed to show any nipple, right, I don't think she could have worn any more revealing dress. She has chosen the dress that is going to make it as hard as possible for us to avoid looking at her breasts, isn't she? It's almost as if, right, I'm going to take every step I possibly can to make people stare at my breasts. And I'm old enough, I'm long enough in the tooth, I've spoken to enough women now to know just how many women, I'm talking about women that aren't attracted to other women, happily admit that when a woman is showing a lot of cleavage, they can't help but be quite fascinated by it. Right? It's just something that it's hard to get away from. And yet, the problem that she has is objectification. And yet the objectification by Jean-Michel Maire wasn't the kissing of the breast. The objectification would have happened whether he'd kissed her breast or not. He was obviously focused on her breast. He was obviously thinking about her tits. And to be quite honest, why wouldn't he be? And I'm just as bad as he is. If objectification is the issue, then I am as much guilty as he is guilty, because I'll admit this, that when I looked at that article on my BBC's thing, I zoomed in on the picture to get a better look, right? I admit that I did that, and I doubt I am the only person to do that. So I found that a really, really strange thing to say, and it kind of depresses me that when I was young, when I was 20 odd years ago now, I used to go out and women would go out showing a lot of cleavage, right? But it was kind of accepted then. Everybody knew, you know, it was there's a sense of realism that went on there. If you went out showing your tits, you went out expecting people to look at your tits and to hopefully admire your tits. Whereas now it seems to be like some kind of crooked game where it's like, how much can I actually do? But if anybody pays any attention to me, I'm going to knock them down because how dare they? It's like me walking into a bar if I was a bit more built, right? And throwing a muscle here and throwing a muscle there. And then some woman walks up to me and says, "Oh, you've got nice biceps, haven't you?" And I say, "Whoa, what do you think you're doing? You're objectifying me now. Don't you realise I'm a person?" I mean, what sympathy would I get in those circumstances? Now, admittedly, this guy, there's a little bit of a difference between touching somebody's biceps and kissing them on the top of their cleavage, which is why I say he'd overstepped the mark and he owes her an apology. But in terms of objectifying somebody, there is no difference between those two acts. And I don't want to suggest, when I was formulating how I was going to say this video, I'm very cagey about it, and I want to talk about, what I wanted to say was something along the lines of, it's almost like planting a trap. But given that she's the victim in this, it's not really the way that I particularly want to phrase it, because I'm not suggesting, it'd be a ridiculous thing to suggest that she'd gone on there wearing that, hoping that he'd kiss her breast and then she'd go, "Ha, gotcha." Right, but I'm taking a more general case of this, that it almost seems to function like some kind of trap. I think most of us are on board with the fact that women can wear the most revealing clothes that they want to wear. They can show as much flesh as they want to show, and that's all well and good. But the fact is that people are attracted to flesh. And if you show a lot of flesh, people's tongues are going to hang out a little bit at the flesh that you are showing, especially if your flesh is as beautiful as this woman's flesh is here. And so to do that, right, to take as many steps as she has taken to have us objectifying her, and then for her complaint to be that we've objectified her, seems like a little bit of a gotcha, really there. And like I say, I don't want to have a go at her particularly about this, because in this case she's the wrong party, but I just felt that this was kind of indicative of something that's a little bit bigger that I've observed, and that was why I wanted to bring it up. Okay, really interested in your thoughts regarding the whole thing, even if you want to talk about the fucking Madonna thing. I'm not bothered. I'm interested to know what you've got to say. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.